Hey everyone, Fox here from Fox & Kit Woodworks, and I gotta ask you guys something. What do power wheels and a miter saw have in common? Brushless motors? Check. On-off switch? Check. Metal and plastic parts? Check. But you'd never use these in the same sentence. Well, what you have on the table here in front of me is a tool from a business that actually does this. Now they reached out to me and said, hey, would you be willing to test and review our tool? And at first I was like, this has gotta be a scam, right? But lo and behold, they sent it to me, it arrived on my front door, and we are gonna be checking out and seeing if this miter saw is worth it to put in your shop. Now, before we get any further into the unboxing and reveal of this miter saw, I wanna let you guys know that, yes, I was sent this tool free of charge. They sent it to me to do a review. However, in no means or any shape or way am I getting paid for this review. As always, I do honest reviews. You're not gonna sway my mind by trying to throw some cash in front of me. You're not gonna sway my mind by putting like a cool tool in front of me. I wanna give you guys the most honest opinion that I can on any of the tools, whether they're budget-friendly used options to new high-end tools. So, let's go ahead and dive into this unboxing. Never heard of this company's name, and this will be the one time I drop it. Sateveo. I believe that's how it's pronounced. S-A-T-E-V-E-O. And thought, there's no way that this is legit. So I actually reached out to the parent company, which they mainly make power wheels, and said, hey, is this one of your guys, gals? And they said, yes, it is. Feel free to contact them and they'll send you out the product. Well, you know what? I'll take the risk. I don't have a DeWalt tool, so I actually went and purchased one on sale so I could use their battery on this, and figured, why not give them a shot? Let's see if a company that makes power wheels can actually make a miter saw that can hold up to our others. We have the blade, some bolts, instructions in there too. This is our clamp for the table. Some handy dandy handles. And then otherwise, outside of that, it's packaged pretty well. It's got a nice foam insert. Oops, I missed a part. We got our dust collection bag. And then the tool itself. Okay, so looking at assembly on this, and I'm not gonna bore you. Okay, so looking at assembly on this, and I'm not gonna bore you putting it all the way together, but it's pretty simple out of the box. Basically, you have your little dust collector, dust bag that can go right there. You have two handles with 4 bolts that go on the sides, and then we just got to go ahead and put the blade on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll be back to kind of go over an overview and features. Hey everyone, Post-Edit Fox here. Originally in the video, I did my whole review, but after reaching out to the company and talking to them a little bit, I figured I should reshoot this and get you guys a little bit more details on it. First of all, this miter saw is actually packed with a few features that I didn't realize it had on the initial shoot. So let's go ahead and go over what this actually has. This is a 8¼ inch blade. Bigger than your normal 7¼ inches that are used for most of your common molding and miter saws, you know, job site, quick ones, especially on the 20-volt platform. It does use the 20-volt DeWalt battery. It is a sliding compound miter, so you just loosen that knob there, you get your sliding, you do this lock here, there goes your blade. Now you have your depth cut. Now they do say it's about a 2 5/8 inch depth cut, but what I want to see is on the back here, because most of the other competitors I've seen, like the DeWalt with the 7¼ inch, can cut up to 3 and I believe it's 5/8 of an inch on trim pieces and molding. And so I want to see if it can have that ability to do that, things won't get in the way. Additionally, it is a dual miter, so you can go either way, left or right, and it does do your bevels all the way to 45 and to 0. Now, originally on the first shoot, I did all my testing and most of the things were good to go. There were some variations when it came to the miters. Now, reaching out to the company and talking to them about that, their tolerance for the miters is about 1/2 degree. So at 0, which would be like our 90-degree cut, if it's 90.4, 90.3, 90.5, that's within their tolerance. I did have an issue pickup on the 15, and that's what we're doing here. We're gonna get some more shooting on this and cutting done, so that way we can see if it was the board or if it was the tool and kind of see where it goes from there. Some of the other things it does come with one of the clamps. It works best on this side so that way it doesn't hit the motor. If you're just trying to lock down the other side off to the side like this works better, but if you don't, typically when you go to close this down, you will hit the knob on here and it won't go all the way. It does have sliding fences with little knobs in the back here. You have your carry handle / fence extensions here, and it does actually have a laser. Originally when I picked this up, there is a button right on top here. See the button right here. I thought that was a reset switch for a fuse or a breaker, but it is actually the on-off button for the laser. Under here, this right here is the actual laser. So we're gonna test that out and see how it works today. And for this, we're gonna be doing the same ranging of cuts. We're gonna cut from 0 out to 45. We might hit a few of the detents on the inside and see how accurate they are. We will be doing bevel cuts. I apologize if the 0 isn't square on the first try. I did set the screws in the back here, or excuse me, the bolts in here to adjust how far it can go because the one that went to the 45 wasn't going to 45. It was an easy fix. However, I accidentally moved the other bolt the first time and threw it off. So let's go ahead and get into cutting some wood. Okay, and while I'm off camera here, I'm gonna go ahead and show you the battery. This is what we use. It's the DeWalt 20 volt battery. See, here's the same battery. I'm going to show you that it does fit with this. Slides in nice and tight. And now we're going to get to cutting. So the first thing we're going to do is a 0 degree miter cut on some molding. This is about a 1/2 inch thick. And let's see how well it cuts it. Okay, so now that we cut that, we're gonna go ahead and check out and see how square it is. And we are definitely square on both sides. That was at the 0 detent. What I did not check is to see if it was square front to back. That'll be easier on a longer piece, but we will do it on this one just for now. And just to show you the confirmation, we are pretty dang close. We're at 89.8. Hopefully you can see that. So we know that our cut going up and down is looking good. Cross cut, we'll try that next. So first of all, these do not have locks. They are detents. So I'm gonna make sure we are set at the 0. We are good there. We're gonna put it in, hold it down nice and tight. And there is our 90 degree cut. Now, let's see how close that is to 90 degrees. We're looking good, 90.3. So that's at the 0 to 10. That's within their 1/2 degree tolerance. Now, what I want to do is bring you in closer so you can see that we do have that laser. It's hard to see out in the sunlight, so let me go ahead and just bring it in. But as you can see, when I bring the shadow in, you can see that laser line does pop up. Let's see how accurate that laser is. I've just drawn a 90 degree line on this. Now we know that this is slightly off at like 90.3, but let's just see how that laser line does line up. And looking at that, it is pretty darn on. At the very back, it's just on the line, and as we go to the front, it's just kind of kissing the line. So honestly, all we would have to do on this is probably give a little, just loosen that up, move it a little to the right, tighten it back down. And I wouldn't over tighten it. I noticed that when you start to over tighten this, it does kind of seem to want to move on you, and I've noticed that with a lot of tools that have twist locks, but now we are dead on that line all the way. Hey everyone, Post Edit Fox here. Just wanted to let you know, if you find these kinds of reviews, tips, tricks, and other videos I put out helpful, please, if you get a chance, hit that like, subscribe, and notification button. It's the best way to help out the channel, and the simplest for you too. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and test out our 15 degree, and then moving it to where it says 15 degrees. And for this one, you can feel it hit that detent. It does want to kind of go past it, so what I'm going to do is look at the indicator marker here and make sure it's on that line. Just finger tighten it down, kind of putting some pressure so it holds on there. Let's test this 15 degrees out. Okay, and my math skills are correct. For this 15 degree cut, we should have 105 degrees, and we are definitely within their 1/2 degree. We're at 105.3, so we got about a 15.3 degree cut there. That's I'd say pretty good. Let me bring it back into frame. I'm still learning how to get this framing right. Okay, next up, our next detent stop is at 22.5. Let's check out 22.5. We're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna feel it hit, we're gonna pull it back a little bit, look at that line, make sure it's set up on there. Just finger tighten it down. And we should be at, okay, so we should be at about 112.5. Let's see what we came out at. And we are dead on 112.5. So that is very accurate so far. All right, we're gonna skip over 30. We're gonna go right to the 45. It does have a positive detent stop at 31.6, not at 30. And then we're just gonna go straight to 45 and see how the 45 does. Make sure it's zeroed out. As you can see, it's zeroed out. And we are sitting at 45.3. So far, everything has been within their specifications at a ½ degree. We're gonna go ahead and move it back to 0. And again, like I said, this does chop through this. This is about 3½ inches tall. Okay, and as we can see here, we are at 90.4. So we're within their ½ inch. Mind you, that was the one that I had actually changed. We're gonna try it from the other side, see if it makes any difference. That one shows we're at dead 90. 89.9 to 90.4. Let's go ahead and rotate this bevel over to 45. Lock it down. Now, my question is, will it be able to do a 45 on this? Because sometimes with crown molding, you need to be able to do a 45. So we're gonna move it out of the way a little bit. Move it here. Make sure the fence is out of the way. Get that lined up. Now, we cannot make a full 45-degree bevel cut on this piece of wood. Yeah, we are getting roughly on a 45-degree bevel 2 inches before it hits the piece of wood. So let's go ahead and test it on a different angle or different width. We'll do it this way right here. Now that we've done that, let's make sure we're zeroed out. Okay, I'm coming up with 46.7. Now let's just double check that I actually got it all the way over. Okay, so we've made the adjustments on it. I did do that other cut and it still came out at 46.6. Now on the back of here, there are these 2 metal shiny bolts, and those allow you to change the stop of 45 degrees and 90 degrees. Let's go ahead and test it and see how well we've done. And there's some of our issue. This board is slightly bowed, so it's kind of chopping it while it's coming up at a more higher angle. So we're gonna flip it around. In fact, what we're gonna do is the difficult side of this. We're gonna put this over here now that we're doing a 45 degree the other way. Now this would be a way to waste a lot of board, but we're gonna try it this way just to help hold it down and see how accurate this is. We are sitting at 45.3. So pretty good. You can obviously tighten this up a little bit. Let's go ahead and get some close-ups of it cutting other types of wood. Okay, and for this, we got some maple, we got some walnut, and we're gonna bring over some oak. And let's just see how this thing cuts through these. Now there's ½ inch and 3/4 inch, and I even might have some 5/4 that we'll use. But let's just try this guy out first. So this is the maple. One thing to note, as you saw here, this clamp will get in the way on this side with the motor. You need to roll it all the way out so that you can get down on it. Cut through the maple, no problem. Now on to the walnut. Decent cut. This is a 40 tooth blade. This is meant more for kind of rip cutting, kind of a combination blade. You can do cross cutting on it. Got a little bit of tear out on the backside. Could smell it like it was burning a little bit, which would mean it's kind of slowing down. But again, didn't see really any pickup on it, maybe just a little bit right there. But it did cut through this, 1.5 inch by 3/4 inch walnut with not too much of a problem. The one thing I did notice while I was cutting it, it did want to push forward as I did it, so I had to make sure I locked my arm in on it, so it didn't want to kick forward or up. Let's go ahead and move over to the red oak, and let's actually put this one through the paces. This is some actual 1 inch thick red oak, and what we're gonna do is try to see if we can get the full length of this cut. This guy does come all the way out here. As you can see, it does get a little tippy, so you're gonna wanna probably clamp this down or bolt it down if you're gonna use it somewhere. But for smaller pieces, this thing's been working great, no problem. Okay, now that that's said, you can see I took a lot of cuts on this. It almost made it all the way through. We are about 1/2 inch for its length of cut. So let's go ahead and get a measurement on that. For total cutting all the way through, we have just over 12 inches. We have 12 1/4 inches. So you can put a piece of material up here 12 1/4 inches in width or depth, however you want to look at it, and actually make it all the way through. It did work its way through this. Let's go ahead and see if we can just finish this cut. Not pretty, but it worked. So that actually works out pretty decently. I'm actually really surprised so far with this machine. I honestly thought there was a point where I thought I'm gonna have to be wearing a face shield, my Kevlar back from the police days, and make sure I didn't catch a piece of flying blade. But so far it's been doing good. Probably putting a newer, nicer blade on it would help with this cutting. Using the right purpose blade for it, whether it's a true cross-cut blade or a rip blade. On this guy, you typically want a cross-cut blade. Now, let's just go ahead and try it on this 1 inch piece and see how much better it does. And as you can see, for a simple stock piece like this, out to 2-3 inches, cuts right through it fine. You don't have to do multiple cuts back and forth. The big test now is a 2x4, so let me go get one of those. All right, I'm back. I did not have any 2x4s, but I did have this cut off piece of a 2x6, and that's the more important part for us. We want to see if it can make it through this full 1.5 inch cut, and maybe even like stack another piece on there to see how high we can get. Let's go ahead and let it rip and see what happens. Went through it just fine. Had to make about 3 passes on it, but it did fine, no issues. A little bit of burning, a little bit of tear out, very common with miter saws. Let's go ahead and stack this walnut on top, bring it up to 2.5, and see what happens. Well, we cut through that with no problems either. So I think their claims of it being able to cut over 2.5 inches are definitely there. I'm kind of impressed. I'm very surprised. Very surprised. Okay, so now that we've done all of our cuts, what are my thoughts? Now, let's start with the bad on this one, okay? First of all, my complaints are really more about out of the box and less on performance. Out of the box, everything looked really good. Everything worked really well. Instructions are pretty easy. There was a little bit of maybe some things to get changed around. I did send those recommendations to the company, but the biggest complaint I had out of the box was the bevel settings. It was set dead on at 0, but at 45 we were off at like 46.7. Easy fix. There's 2 bolts that adjust here. Made the adjustments, were then pretty much dead on at 45. The only issue I had is I undid the wrong one, so then I threw off my 0 and I had to recalibrate both. But you know what? I'm figuring out the tool a little bit better. Dust collection. As you can see, there is a lot of dust around, and all miter saws are pretty much horrible to okay at dust collection. This one being not the greatest, and I think there's a few reasons for that. One, it is a much smaller hole behind the blade here, and two, there is no type of piece of plastic or like shoe to help collect that dust and throw it up into the bag. The bag has very little dust in it. If you're using a shop vac, I think it would be a better. However, again, because it doesn't have this shoe here, it kind of gets thrown around below and outside, and that's just kind of the life of miter saws, but I believe there are other ones out there that do a better job, such as like the new Bosch that came out, but that might cost you an arm and a leg. But so far, that has been my biggest two complaints. Outside of that, it's more about features and how it works. I'm used to bigger corded miter saws, such as my Wens or even my 10-inch old Ryobi that I finally got rid of. But for a simple, lightweight, battery-powered miter saw, especially for doing some molding work, some trim work, things like that, it works great, especially if you're in the DeWalt platform. Let's talk about the positives I like about it. One, the size. It's got a good footprint. It's small and compact. You can put it up pretty small and put it up on a shelf out of the way. As you can see here, you close this down, you lock it in, close this, lock it in, loosen this up, swing it out to the 45. You're actually looking at a pretty reasonable footprint that you can put someplace. The fact that it was so accurate with the miters within their half a degree tolerance, it was fine. I've had worse on older machines and bigger machines. I've had better. But that's just kind of the nature of tools, right? We have to tinker with them and figure it out to get it just dead set on. That's why it's always important to do test cuts before you do your final cuts. Power-wise, I'm actually pretty impressed. Looking up some specs, comparing this one to the next most similar item, which would be the DeWalt kind of series, 20 volt powered, 7¼ inch blade. That one has 3,800 roughly RPM. This one does 4,100. So where I thought it was kind of underpowered for the battery platforms, it's right in spitting distance and a little bit more powerful on the spin. Plus it has a bigger blade, which is going to allow for a little bit more depth of cutting. When it comes to the bigger ones, the corded ones, you know, you've got a bigger motor, you're going to get a better spin on it. You're going to get deeper cuts because of the bigger blade. But for this battery platform, I like that. It's actually trying to be competitive. It does come with some features that I'm surprised about. It does have the laser. It is accurate. The light is on there, though I would say that could probably fall more in the complaints category because it's there. It kind of brightens things up, but not really. I think if they put a brighter LED light in there or a couple more across it, it would actually really be helpful. And also, when you go ahead and hit this thumb button, that's when it should activate the light, not when you start to spin up the blade. I think that would help make it a little easier, especially if you're working in dusk evening hours, maybe nighttime like I do as a small little shop in the garage. You know, that would help out for that. Other than that, it's a good tool for what it is. It uses a battery platform that a lot of people are already in with the 20 volt DeWalt Max series. I actually think it's pretty competitive, and I think you're going to be surprised at the price point on this. Now, obviously, the biggest thing here, would I recommend this? Yes and no, and here are my reasons why. For me personally, to recommend it for myself, it would be a no. It's in a new battery platform with the DeWalt series. Now, I do have that battery, so we'll see how many more things I test or might pick up in the DeWalt. Maybe it'll be a switch. It's not the right size. I work with much bigger stock, though it can get out to 12 and almost 1/4 inches of length cutting. It's a lot easier to do that on a 12-inch blade than on a 8¼ inch blade. I do like the fact that it is small and compact, and I think I might be holding on to this one for a little longer than I expected, because one thing that I do like to do a lot of work on is the smaller boxes, and this would be a lot easier to pull out and set up and get those mitered cuts and angles for those pieces than maybe going over to the table saw or my big miter saw. Now, who I would recommend this to. If you're in the 20 volt DeWalt battery series and you don't have a miter saw and the $369, $400 price tag for the tool only for their DeWalt 7¼ I would say give this one a shot. And the reason being is I just found out the other day from the company that this is going to be right around $200. So even if you wanted to buy another battery for it, you could buy the battery from DeWalt and this tool and actually still be at or less than the tool only for the DeWalt, plus you're getting an extra inch of cutting. Now you do get some of the satisfaction of it being a DeWalt and not a no-name brand. However, if you're entry level and you're just starting to do some DIY stuff around the house, if you do need a smaller miter saw that can cut 2x4s with ease, this actually did that just fine. If you're starting a little wood shop, workshop, maybe a laser engraving where you're cutting some small stock down for you, this would be another great answer. Now, would I recommend it to your professional contractor? Probably not. In fact, no. And really the reason why for that is, I don't know how long it's going to last. We're going to have to see over the next several months to a year how well this holds up. Does it hold up like a name brand machine? Or is it going to start having little hiccups here and there or breakdowns? And that's going to be the true testing point for this. As a DIY weekend warrior, maybe a small shop that uses a miter saw occasionally, I think this would be great for you, especially if you're in the 20 volt DeWalt Max Series batteries. However, if you are a contractor doing lots of work, you're probably already going to be into another brand or a DeWalt brand and have this, so this probably wouldn't be the best option for you. But as a budget saw coming in around $200, I think that's a good price, especially for most people out here trying to save money like me. So anyways, we will be doing more reviews with this down the road. We will be doing an updated review probably in about a month, and then a longevity review around 6 months to a year to see how well this saw holds up, and if maybe it might have changed my mind a little bit more and put it into a new category. I want to say thank you for all watching this and following along, and if you do get a chance, please hit that like, subscribe, and notification button, and I'll see you on the next one.